Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Friday, April 18th, 2025. Feels like a crisp spring day out there.
Definitely. And the markets, some movement today, looks like.
Yeah, seeing a bit of action. And, it's Friday, so here at Snarful Solutions Group, it is Casual Friday.
Always nice to wrap up the week a bit more relaxed.
Absolutely. But relaxing doesn't mean slowing down on the news front. We're diving straight into some big tech stories today.
Right. On Connecting the Dots, we're looking at, three main headlines?
Exactly. 3 key tech stories making waves, and importantly, how they connect or might connect back to your everyday life.
It's always interesting to see those threads, isn't it? How things in different areas, academia, entertainment, politics, they reflect similar pressures.
For sure. So let's jump into the first one. This is getting a lot of attention. The increasing pressure on the American university system.
Yes. Significant pressure, it seems, coming from the Trump administration specifically.
Right. And the administration's reasoning, or the stated reasoning, revolves around concerns about, quote, viewpoint diversity and also anti-Semitism.
Yeah, those are the terms being used. And, this isn't entirely out of the blue. If you look back, Vice President J.D. Vance, back in 2021, gave this speech, "The universities are the enemy."
Wow, strong title.
Very. And he explicitly talked about intending to aggressively attack the university. So the intent was signaled quite early.
Wow.
And you also have figures like Christopher Rufo, the conservative activist, who's been pretty clear about his goal. Set them back a generation or two, he said.
A generation or two? That's quite something.
It is. And there's even reporting about Trump aides discussing sort of strategically how toppling a high-profile university could send a powerful message.
So this is moving beyond just words then?
Definitely. We're seeing actual actions. Sources mention things like deporting non-citizen students based on speech or beliefs.
Really?
Yes. And investigations open into, I think the number is over 50 universities, plus the financial leverage is huge.
All right, I saw the numbers. Threats to grants and contracts. We're talking big figures like $510 million for Brown.
Yep. Columbia, $400 million. Cornell, $1 billion.
$1 billion.
Harvard, $9 billion potentially at risk in contracts and grants over time. Penn, $175 million. Princeton, $210 million. It's serious financial pressure.
Absolutely serious. And that deal with Columbia, that sounded pretty intense.
It was. It reportedly forced changes to their protest policies, security, and it even singled out the Middle Eastern, South Asian, and African Studies Department.
And did they get their funding back? Of $400 billion?
Apparently not. The deal didn't restore it, and now there's talk of a possible consent decree, which would give the government ongoing oversight. It's a tricky spot for them.
And it's not just Columbia, right? Harvard's facing demands too.
Oh, yeah. Demands to audit every department for, again, viewpoint diversity, and to hire faculty based on, undefined administration standards.
Undefined standards? How does that even work?
Exactly. Plus, Trump himself has threatened Harvard's tax-exempt status, and the IRS might actually be poised to act on that.
Wow. And cutting off international students, too.
That threat's been made. And look at Ed Martin, the interim U.S. attorney for D.C. He told Georgetown his office won't hire their grads if the school teaches DEI.
DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's a direct hit.
A very direct hit. And if you look at, say, Project 2025, that conservative policy blueprint, it suggests more federal control over accreditation, privatizing student loans, never-ending compliance reviews for elite schools, demands for patriotic education. It paints a picture of a much more involved federal role.
So with all this coming at them, how are the universities reacting? Are they just taking it?
Not entirely. You've got leaders like Princeton's president, Christopher Eisgruber, calling it the greatest threat since the Red Scare. That's a strong statement.
It certainly is.
And Lee Bollinger, former president of Michigan and Columbia, he framed it as part of an authoritarian takeover. So strong language in response.
And Harvard. You mentioned they were facing demands.
Right, and they seem to be digging in. President Alan Garber said they will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights.
Good for them. What were the specific demands again?
It was a long list. Reducing student and faculty power, the viewpoint diversity vetting, plagiarism checks on all faculty.
Real faculty?
Yep. Sharing hiring info, shutting down DEI, auditing departments for anti-Semitism, even the Divinity School.
The Divinity School. Okay, so by resisting Harvard's facing funding cuts, the tax status threat, maybe losing international students.
That seems to be the potential fallout, yes.
Which brings up a huge question. What tools do these universities actually have to fight back? They seem powerful, but against the federal government.
It's a great question. And the source material points to a few things. First, obviously, money, endowments. Collectively, U.S. universities have something like $800 billion.
$800 billion. You'd think that would give them some leverage.
You would. But endowments are often restricted, right? Tied up for specific long-term purposes. Not exactly a rainy day fund for political fights. Plus, there's the counter threat of taxing those endowments if they don't comply.
Ah, okay, so it's not simple. What else?
Students. There are 15 million of them. That's over 4% of the U.S. population. History shows that if you mobilize even a small percentage, like 3.5%, for nonviolent action, it can be incredibly powerful.
Interesting point, these sheer numbers.
And the institutions themselves. Over 4,000 colleges and universities. If they could coordinate better on, say, lobbying, legal defense, communications, that could be a force.
Makes sense. Strength in numbers.
Then there's faculty and alumni. Think of the expertise, historians, political scientists, lawyers, and the networks they have.
Like the Georgetown law dean pushing back.
Exactly. Bill Treanor firmly standing up to Ed Martin, citing the university's mission and expertise. That's a key resource. Plus, real estate campuses could host debates, organizing.
Right, using their physical space.
Even athletics, potentially. Maybe not shutting down games, but using that platform to highlight the university's value and the threats. And for big research institutions, their defense and cyber research.
Things the government relies on.
Precisely. And their medical centers. Essential community resources. Highlighting that value, maybe expanding services, could build public support.
So connecting this first story to everyday life, what's the takeaway for listeners?
Well, it fundamentally impacts the future quality of education and research. Fewer top international students, maybe research funding drying up. That affects the pipeline of skilled professionals, scientific breakthroughs,
Yeah, the long-term effects.
And it raises these really big questions about academic freedom, government overreach, values that matter beyond just the campus walls, right?
Definitely food for thought. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Sticking with external pressures, but moving into the tech we buy. Nintendo.
The Switch 2 saga. Yeah, it seems like they're caught in the crosshairs of these potential Trump tariffs.
Right. It's creating uncertainty, as they put it, affecting pricing, pre-orders. The whole launch plan seems a bit wobbly.
So the initial prices announced were what, $449.99 for the console itself?
Yeah, $449.99, and then a bundle with Mario Kart World digitally for $499.99, though they said that bundle is limited production through fall 2025.
While supplies last, probably. And the games themselves. Mario Kart World standalone is $79.99, and that Donkey Kong Bonanza game coming in July is $69.99.
Seems pretty standard for next-gen pricing, maybe a little high for some.
Possibly. But the real curveball is the tariffs. These are basically taxes on imports, right? And Nintendo makes its stuff in places like China and Vietnam.
So tariffs would just jack up Nintendo's costs directly.
Exactly. Which puts their pricing strategy in question. Some analysts, like Sarkantoto, thought maybe Nintendo had already priced the console high enough to absorb potential tariffs. Tried to make it tariff-proof, as he said.
Interesting theory. Build it into the price from the start.
But others, like Piers Harding-Rolls, they're suggesting, well, maybe not. He thinks a price hike in 2026 is still possible if the tariffs stick around. Nintendo tends to be careful, especially with the U.S. market.
And what are gamers saying?
Well, apparently Nintendo's promotional streams have been flooded with comments like, drop the price. Even at the announced $450, $500 level. Shows how price-sensitive gamers can be.
Yeah, that's a vocal audience. So, how's Nintendo responding officially?
They've delayed the U.S. pre-orders. They were supposed to start April 9th, but now it's indefinite.
Indefinite, just in the U.S.
Yep. They said it's to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. The actual launch date, June 5th, 2025, that's apparently still on, for now.
So what are their options, really?
Basically, they can either eat the cost of the tariffs, right? Sell the hardware for less profit, maybe even at a loss, and hope to make it back on games. It's a classic console strategy.
The old razor and blades model.
Kind of, yeah. Or, like Harding-Rolls suggested, they might just have to pass the cost on and raise the price later if tariffs become reality. It's a gamble either way.
So the everyday connection here is pretty direct, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If you're planning to buy a Switch 2, Well, you might end up paying more than you expected, or maybe have trouble finding one if supplies are affected by this uncertainty.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how, big geopolitical trade stuff can trickle right down to the price tag on your next gadget.
Exactly. Hits the wallet directly.
Okay, final story for today. Let's stick with gaming, but look at a success story this time. Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Right, Ubisoft's big new release, and despite maybe some online chatter beforehand, it seems to have launched really strongly commercially.
Yeah, the numbers look impressive. Matt Piscatella from Circana says it was the best-selling game in the U.S. for its first 3 weeks. Launched March 20th.
3 weeks at number 1, that's solid.
And year to date, it's apparently number 2 in U.S. sales, just behind Monster Hunter Wilds. Ubisoft itself announced over 2 million activations.
2 million already? Wow. And I saw something about launch day revenue.
Yep. Second highest ever for an Assassin's Creed game. Only Valhalla did better on day 1. And on the PlayStation Store, best day 1 launch for any Ubisoft game.
That's huge for them. What about PC?
PC seems strong too, about 27% of activations. And on Steam, it actually beat the all-time peak player count for Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Oh.
So good engagement there too.
So sales are good. How's the reception? Critically, player reviews.
Generally pretty positive, it seems. OpenCritic scores around 82, Metacritic 81, solid numbers. And Steam reviews are about 80% positive from like 16,000 players.
So better received than the last couple of AC games overall.
Looks like it, yeah. Which is interesting. Maybe the changes they made, the setting, maybe it just clicked better this time.
And this success comes at a pretty crucial time for Ubisoft, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. They've had some rough spots recently. Underperforming games like Star Wars, Outlaws, Avatar, studio closures, layoffs. They shut down X-Defiant.
Right, so a big win with Assassin's Creed is exactly what they needed. And they're forming that new subsidiary with Tencent now, right? Focusing on AC, Far Cry, Rainbow Six.
Yeah, seems like they're doubling down on their biggest hitters.
Yeah.
And it's worth remembering, Shadows itself had delays.
That's right. It got pushed back a couple of times, from November 24 to Feb 25, then finally to March. The last delay was supposedly for incorporating player feedback.
Shows how complex making these massive games is. And there's talk of DLC already.
Yeah, potential expansion called Claws of Awaji maybe later this year. Keep the momentum going.
So, connecting this one to everyday life, well, for gamers, it's obviously relevant.
Yeah.
A major new release doing well.
Right. It tells you something about what's popular right now, what kind of experiences players are looking for. And it also kind of pulls back the curtain a bit on the game industry itself.
How so?
Well, you see the impact of delays, the pressure on big companies like Ubisoft, how player feedback might shape the final product. It's not just about playing the game, but understanding the whole ecosystem around it.
Makes sense. So let's quickly recap the 3 stories we dove into today.
Okay. We had the significant pressure on U.S. universities from the administration, driven by concerns over viewpoint diversity and anti-Semitism, and the university's responses.
Then the uncertainty around the Nintendo Switch 2, specifically how potential tariffs are messing with pricing and pre-orders.
And finally, the strong launch of Assassin's Creed Shadows, a needed success for Ubisoft, despite some earlier bumps in the road.
And the common thread, really, is how these big-picture forces, government actions, global trade, industry pressures, they actually ripple out and connect to us.
Yeah, whether it's the future of education, the cost of your entertainment, or just understanding the context behind the games you play, it's all surprisingly linked.
It really encourages you to, look beyond the headline and see those connections, how these bigger shifts can affect things closer to home.
Definitely something to keep thinking about.
We are here to help here in Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.